Well, I jumped ahead again, as you can see. It's kind of funny, you know. There is a lake just north of where I live. It's called Stave Lake, and you cannot access the north end of that lake unless you have a boat. And this is the North Stave. Okay, this is not necessarily it, but what affects my imagination is the way that the North Stave River comes into the lake. There are, I don't know how many square miles of delta, that there are a lot of sand, there's some rock. It's a glacial fed river, and this is a scene you'd be hard pressed to find there. But the feeling of this estuary where that river widens and goes into the lake, it's a lake that's controlled by BC Hydro, British Columbia Hydro, so it's dammed, and they raise and lower the level quite a bit, depending on what they need for power, I guess. But the north end of the lake is honestly just it's so beautiful. It's one of my favorite places I've ever seen in my life. It's so rugged, it's incredible. And that always affects, for some reason, my painting when I'm doing the river. You know, I like that glacial color. You know, this is not such glacial looking silt in the river, but you know, you have that color of the fine greenish bluish silt, but then you also have that and a combination of the color that's in the sky, and between the two you have reflection and refraction, and you end up with sort of a happy medium in there. That's what I'm laying in here. Plus I wanted to lighten the values here before I get to the foreground, because I want them to begin on their edges as silhouette-ish, and then we'll begin to bring some color as we come forward. Again, more poorly articulated description, but oh well. I think you know what I mean. Now this little stump I have sitting here, it's not so little. I made it a little too big, and I think I would like to cut it down. I don't want it as wide as it is. Okay, that might do it. Okay, I need to mix up a little more ultramarine blue, a little more yellow ochre, a touch of burnt sienna. That's a little dark, I think. Whoops, a little bit more junk on my brush. Try to be a little bit rough here, because that's how things stay loose, and you can see already the painting is not that loose at all. So if I can provide it with a bit of that in the odd place, there's no harm in doing that. Just tend to get tighter and tighter and tighter, and before you know it, you end up with a poster. I don't think we've quite gotten there yet, so let's try to avoid it. Okay, I think that's going to work for our foreground shape. You know, this dish helps to oppose this knoll a little bit. This mass is opposed by this mass a little bit. This is heavy and strong, carries the weight of things, and it tapers off as we go to the right. Where the water meets the shore, it's actually gone up. Okay, I've actually raised that line to get the feeling of going off in the distance, so it's somewhat foreshortened. And then I have taken a few strokes and followed that angle. As I've come closer, I'm going to exaggerate it. I've gone more into this angle. Then as I've come very close, I'm not worrying about angles, I'm just filling it in. Alright, I may put a highlight or two on there yet, but for the moment that'll do just fine. So yeah, this long, what I called earlier, beach, doesn't look like sand. It really looks like a very long, rocky shelf. That's okay too. It works with the design of the painting, and it's about the painting. I am going to have to close this very thick line off here a little bit, where the rock meets the water, or where the shoreline meets the water, and play a little bit there. That's okay. We'll get to that. I also just grabbed a little bit of yellow ochre and burnt sienna and a bit of white, and laid it in at the very bottom, because that, although the value is much lower, it more accurately repeats the colors that are in the sky. And I just laid them wet in wet over what I had, but I think that improved it. And you know, if you can make an improvement, that's always a good thing. So I'm going to start laying in the trunks. I'm going to do this group of trees first. It's sort of a Halloweenish looking treetop. I don't think that I want to remove the shape too much. I actually quite like the shape of this bunch. So what I'm going to do is try to lighten the value of this group enough so that they, on initial viewing of the painting, they kind of become less important. They disappear a little bit. Anyway, that's talk, so let's paint. I'm just using some alizarin crimson. No, burnt sienna. And a bit of white. And I'm going to stop these trees, at least that's my thinking for now, right at the top of this bush. I want this bush to stand proud of these trunks, because I don't want these trunks ending up being too long design-wise. It doesn't take many strokes to do this, but it does take thoughtful ones. Okay, I'm going to mix a little bit of ultramarine blue in there, a little more burnt sienna, and I'm going to paint the dark side. The dark side of that trunk. There we go. That's awfully straight, isn't it? Okay. Well, let's not worry about it. But you can see it's already melting into the background, partly because the colors that are behind it, here and here, are very close to these. And the values are actually not too far off. Now I'm going to keep my values darker on the skinny ones, these skinny trees, because if I go light, they will get lost in the background. Okay, so you'll see I've stopped the trunk here to allow this foliage to stand proud of that. That helps to break up this trunk a little bit. So far so good. You know, I think I'm just going to stick with that and make it a branch sticking out like that. Okay, and okay, let's bring that one down just a little bit. Just a bit. Okay, that branch is sticking out. This branch needs to be kept dark because it's a silhouette against the distance. There's no point in trying to compete with the distance. And okay, that should work for those. That should work there. Now I'm going to wet my brush and I'm going to just go with a bit of burnt sienna and a little bit of white. Not going too high a value, or not going too high a chroma, but I'm raising the value a little bit. Oops, not quite enough. Nope, that was a bad idea. See, I smudged a little bit too far over. So, okay, you know, see how that trunk is sort of half and half, light and dark? That's not good either. Yeah, mostly light or mostly dark. Alright, so I'm just going to grab a little bit of ultramarine blue, bit of burnt sienna, no white at all. Very dark stuff. And I'm going to just thin it off with a bit of turpentine. There, I don't like the top of that, the way it sits. Okay, I think we can work with that. All right. These are such small strokes, and I have to clean my brush so many times because of the technique that I've chosen. If the whole painting were wet and wet, it would sure be a lot easier to do, but I just like this effect. Which curses me to have to do more work. But it's got its rewards. Okay, that's good for now. We'll move ahead soon, and I might just stop the video at this, in which case we'll talk to you soon.